Hello, my dear dreamer. Tonight, we wander through Scotland's misty highlands and shadowed shores to uncover 4 captivating tales. From the depths of Loch Ness to the haunting streets of Glasgow, these legends of monsters, mermaids, and mystery await. If you enjoy these fireside journeys, please like and subscribe to share the wonder with more dreamers. Now, settle in and let's dive into Scotland's enchanting world of myth and lore. On the rugged shores of the Orkney Islands, where the waves crash against jagged cliffs and the sea mist lingers like a ghostly veil, there exists a tale older than memory itself. The villagers speak of the Selkies, creatures of legend who live as seals in the ocean, but walk as humans on land under the light of the full moon. These beings, neither wholly of the sea nor of the land, embody a sorrowful beauty, forever torn between 2 worlds. The Selkies' dual existence is bound by a single truth: their seal skins. Without these pelts, they cannot return to the sea. This vulnerability has entwined them with human lives in countless stories, tales of love, betrayal, and loss passed down through generations. One such story is whispered in the small fishing hamlet of Duress, where the sea and the land share secrets in equal measure. Callum was a fisherman, a solitary figure who spent his days battling the ocean's temper and his nights dreaming of a life beyond the grey horizon. One stormy evening, seeking refuge from the biting wind, he stumbled into a sea cave. There, amidst the echoing drip of seawater, he saw her. A woman stood at the water's edge, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders. Draped over a rock nearby was a seal skin that shimmered like moonlight on the water. Callum realized what he was seeing: a Selkie in her human form. Compelled by a mixture of wonder and longing, Callum did something he would regret later for the rest of his life. He took the sealskin. The woman, her beauty otherworldly, turned to him with wide, sorrowful eyes. She pleaded for the return of her pelt, her voice like the whisper of the tide. But Callum, overcome by his own loneliness, begged her to stay. He promised her a home, a life filled with care, and a love that would never falter. Bound by the absence of her sealskin, the Selkie, whom Callum named Moira, reluctantly stayed. In time, they built a life together. She bore him children, and while her touch was tender and her love for her children genuine, her gaze often drifted to the horizon, her heart yearning for the waves she could no longer call home. Callum, though he loved her deeply, could sense the ache within her. He tried to fill the void with kindness and devotion, but some desires are as endless as the ocean itself. Years passed, and Moira's longing grew with each passing tide. One fateful day, their youngest daughter, Isla, a curious child with eyes as bright as her mother's, stumbled upon a hidden chest beneath the floorboards. Within it lay the sealskin, soft and glistening, as though it had been never touched by human hands. Isla, unaware of its significance, brought it to her mother. When Moira saw the skin, she sank to her knees, clutching it as if it were a lost piece of her soul. Tears streamed down her face, and she hugged Isla tightly, whispering words of love and farewell. That night, as the moon hung low over the water, Moira went to the shore with her sealskin draped over her shoulders. Callum found her there, standing at the water's edge, her silhouette framed by the silver light of the moon. His heart broke as he realized what was about to happen. "I love you," he said, his voice trembling. "I always have, but I know now I can never hold what was never mine to keep." Moira turned to him, her eyes glistening with gratitude and sorrow. "I loved you too, Callum," she said softly, "but my heart belongs to the sea, and it always has." With that, she slipped into her sealskin and dove beneath the waves. Callum and his children never saw her again, but they felt her presence in the lullabies of the tide and the songs the wind carried from the sea. On quiet nights, they would sit by the shore and listen to the haunting melody of the waves, swearing they could hear Moira's voice within the ocean's timeless song. The villagers say that the Selkies still walk the shores on moonlit nights, their mournful songs as a reminder of the delicate balance between freedom and love, and the eternal pull of the sea. Callum's story, like so many others, became part of the fabric of Orkney's lore, a tale of the souls of the sea and the humans who dared to hold them, if only for a while. The end. Long ago, before roads lined the shores and boats skimmed the waters, Loch Ness was a place of untouched beauty, surrounded by ancient forests and rugged mountains. The loch was said to hold secrets as deep as its dark waters, and the most mysterious of them all was the Loch Ness Guardian. The story begins with an ancient clan that lived in the highlands, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the land and the waters of Loch Ness. The clan believed the loch was sacred, a gift from the spirits to provide them with fish, fresh water, and protection from invaders. To guard this precious treasure, the spirits created the Loch Ness Guardian, a creature both fearsome and majestic. The Guardian was said to be an enormous serpent-like being with shimmering scales that reflected the colors of the loch, blue as the sky by day, black as its depths by night. It was neither beast nor fish, but a spirit-given form tasked with protecting the loch and the people who lived around it. For centuries, the clan lived in harmony with the Guardian. They honored it with offerings of fresh fish and carved symbols of its image into stones near the shore. In return, the loch provided bountiful harvests and kept them safe. But as generations passed, the old ways began to fade. A new leader arose, ambitious and impatient. He declared that the Guardian was a myth and that the offerings were a waste of time. "We are the masters of this land," he said, "and the loch owes us its bounty without payment." Ignoring the warnings of the elders, the clan stopped their offerings and began to take more from the loch than they needed. They hunted its fish to near extinction and polluted its waters with waste from their growing village. The once clear loch grew darker and more turbulent, as if in anger. One moonless night, the loch churned violently, waves crashing against the shore. From its depths rose the guardian, larger and more fearsome than ever. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its roar echoed through the valley. The creature unleashed its wrath upon the village, flooding the fields and dragging boats into the depths. The people fled in terror, their pride and greed undone by the force of the guardian's rage. By dawn, the village was gone, swallowed by the waters of the loch. The survivors, humbled and frightened, sought refuge in the hills. They realized their folly and begged the spirits for forgiveness. An elder, the last keeper of the old ways, led them back to the shore with offerings of fish, herbs, and carved stones. Kneeling by the water, they pledged to honor the guardian and care for the loch. The waters calmed, and for a moment the guardian's shimmering form appeared beneath the surface. It circled the offerings and disappeared into the depths, as if its anger appeased. To this day, the people of the highlands say the guardian still watches over Loch Ness. On quiet nights, some claim to see its glimmering shape or hear its low rumbling call. Fishermen leave a portion of their catch on the rocks, and children are taught to respect the loch and its mysteries. The legend of the Loch Ness Guardian is a tale of balance and reverence, a reminder that nature must be cared for and respected. Though the world has changed, the loch remains, and perhaps so does its ancient protector, keeping watch beneath the waves. The end. In the shadowy streets of post-war Glasgow, where the soot-blackened buildings loomed under a perpetually grey sky, a story spread like wildfire through the tenement flats and narrow alleys. It was a tale whispered by children, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement, as they huddled in groups after school. They spoke of the Gorbals Vampire, a monstrous figure said to haunt the southern necropolis, preying on the young and defenseless. The name alone was enough to send shivers down their spines, and yet it called to them like a sinister dare. The story began with a single chilling rumor. A 7-foot-tall creature with iron teeth and glowing red eyes had been spotted prowling among the gravestones. It was said that the vampire had already claimed the lives of 2 boys, dragging them into the shadows of the cemetery, never to be seen again. No one knew where the rumor originated, but within days it had consumed the neighborhood, spreading from one child's lips to another's like an infectious fear. As the days wore on, the children of the Gorbals district began to gather, drawn by a mixture of curiosity and terror. Armed with homemade weapons, sticks, kitchen knives, and even sharpened rulers, they marched to the southern necropolis in the dying light of evening. They were determined to confront the monster, their fear outweighed only by their collective bravery and the thrill of adventure. The cemetery itself was a place of eerie beauty, a sprawling maze of ancient tombstones and crumbling mausoleums. By day, it was a quiet haven, but by night, it became something entirely different. The wind whispered through the trees like ghostly voices, and the shadows seemed to shift and breathe. The children moved as one, their laughter and chatter fading into a tense silence as they entered the graveyard. They searched for hours, their flashlights casting long flickering beams across the moss-covered stones. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a tree branch sent their hearts racing. Some claimed to see glowing eyes in the distance. Others swore they heard the grinding of iron teeth. The fear was palpable, a living thing that wrapped around them like the thick Glasgow fog. Yet, despite their determination, the vampire never appeared. By the early hours of the morning, the children began to drift home, their bravado replaced by exhaustion and a lingering sense of unease. But the story did not end there. The Gorbals Vampire became a local legend, feeding on the fears and imaginations of the community. Parents scolded their children for wandering into the cemetery, but even they spoke of the creature in hushed tones. The adults sought to explain the hysteria. Some blamed the vivid imaginations of children, while others pointed to the influence of lurid American horror comics that had recently arrived in Glasgow. The government, alarmed by the mass hysteria, launched an investigation into the so-called vampire sightings. A moral panic ensued, with parents, teachers, and religious leaders decrying the corrupting influence of these gruesome comics. Laws were passed to regulate their content, but the children knew the truth. The comics might have sparked their fears, but the Gorbals Vampire was born of something far older and darker. A blend of urban folklore and the deep-seated fears that lingered in the post-war shadows. Years later, those who had been children during the time of the Gorbals Vampire would laugh nervously when recounting the story. They would recall the bravery it took to venture into the southern necropolis, the thrill of imagining themselves as heroes battling a monster. But even as they laughed, some admitted to feeling a shiver when walking past the cemetery at night, as though the vampire's legend still held a silver of truth. For the southern necropolis remains a place of quiet foreboding, its gravestones withered but steadfast, its shadows deep and unknowable. And in the hearts of those who grew up in the Gorbals, the vampire lives on, not just as a tale of terror, but as a reminder of the power of imagination and the strange allure of the unknown. The end. In the shadow of the Kessock Bridge, where the dark waters of the Beauty Firth meet the Moray Firth, there is a tale as old as the tides themselves. The fishermen of Inverness tell it in hushed tones, a story of a mermaid who once roamed these waters, a siren of the deep whose haunting song spoke of love, loss, and longing. She was called Morana, the Mermaid of Kessock, a creature of breathtaking beauty. Her hair flowed like rivers of golden kelp, her eyes shimmered like moonlit waves, and her voice could calm the most violent storms. It is said that she lived in an underwater palace made of coral and pearl, a sanctuary hidden beneath the waves where no human eyes could venture. Yet Morana's heart was heavy with sorrow. The legend tells of a sailor named Duncan, a man as bold as the sea itself. One fateful evening, as his boat drifted near the firth, Duncan heard a song rising from the waters. It was unlike anything he had ever heard, both mournful and enchanting, a melody that seemed to call his very soul. Peering over the edge of his boat, he saw her, sitting upon a rock that jutted out of the water like a sentinel of the deep. Morana gazed at him with eyes that seemed to hold the entire ocean, and in that moment Duncan felt as though he were drowning, not in the sea, but in her soul. Without thinking, he leapt into the water and swam toward her. The closer he got, the louder her song became, filling him with an unshakable longing. But as he reached out to touch her, she vanished, leaving only the ripples of her absence behind. Duncan became obsessed, returning to the firth night after night, hoping to see her again. His friends warned him to stay away, calling her a siren who lured men to their deaths. But he refused to listen. "She is not a monster," he would say. "She is lost, and I must find her." One moonless night, his persistence was rewarded. Morana appeared once more, her voice weaving through the darkness like a silver thread. This time she spoke to him. "Why do you seek me, sailor?" she asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and despair. "Because I love you," Duncan replied, his words earnest and unshaken. "Come with me, and I will show you the world beyond these waters." Morana's laughter was soft and sorrowful, like the whisper of waves against the shore. "You do not understand," she said. "I cannot leave these waters, for they are my prison. The sea is my home and my curse." She told him her story, of how she had once been human, a girl who loved the sea more than the land. One day, she made a foolish bargain with the sea god, trading her humanity for eternal life beneath the waves. But she had not understood the price. For every day of her immortality, she would feel the weight of loneliness grow, a tide of sorrow that no song could ease. Moved by her tale, Duncan vowed to break her curse. "There must be a way," he said. "Tell me how, and I will do it." Morana hesitated, then spoke. "The only way to free me is to give up what you hold most dear. If you truly love me, you must offer your life to the sea." Duncan's heart wavered, torn between his love for Morana and his instinct to survive. But as he looked into her sorrowful eyes, he knew he could not abandon her to her fate. "I will do it," he said. The sea roared in approval, and Duncan felt the pull of the waves as they claimed him. As he sank beneath the water, Morana caught him, her arm strong yet gentle. For a moment he felt no fear, only a profound peace. But just as the darkness began to take him, Morana cried out. "No," she screamed, her voice breaking the stillness of the night. With all her strength, she pushed him back to the surface. "I cannot let you do this," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Your life is too precious. Live, Duncan, live and remember me." Before he could protest, the waves carried him back to his boat. When he looked back, she was gone, her song fading into the depths. Duncan never saw Morana again, but he often returned to the firth, sitting by the water's edge and listening for her song. Though the years passed and his hair turned grey, he never forgot her, her voice, her sorrow, her sacrifice. And on quiet nights, when the wind was still and the sea calm, he swore he could hear her lament, a melody that reminded him of both the beauty and the tragedy of love. The people of Inverness say that Moranna's song still echoes through the waters of Kessock, a siren's lament that speaks of a love that could never be, and a heart that still longs for freedom. To this day, fishermen steer clear of the firth on moonlit nights, fearing they too might fall under the spell of the Mermaid of Kessock. But for those who dare to listen, her song is a reminder that even in the depths of sorrow, love can shine like a beacon, guiding the lost back to shore. The end. Glad our stories come to an end. I hope you're already going to sleep right now. Or have you fallen to sleep? Good night.